I'm Ryan Sullivan. I'm Emily's husband. So I wasn't here at Southridge. I was in Montana. We met at college. So I'm going to share a lot of our college highlights because I figured that'd be a heck of a lot more fun. But before we dive into, and I was told last week that I get to do this, and to extol the virtues of a woman you've been married to for 25 years, who's basically given up her life for me and her family in 5 minutes. To do that unemotionally might be a little challenging, so forgive me up front. But before we dive into Emily, as a former athlete, getting old with gray hair, you think about things and you kind of look back, and there's people that influence you in your life along the way that maybe aren't your parents, that give you those subtle hints to maybe steer left when you wanted to go right, kind of like Coach Sanders and Jake. Sheila Smith, if you could, please stand up. So Em and I started dating. It was her freshman year. I was a junior college transfer. We met at New Athlete Orientation in Pullman, and we dated for 3, 4, 5 months, whatever it was. And she said, "You need to come to the Tri-Cities, meet my family." And I said, "Cool." And then she said, "You're going to meet Sheila." I'm like, "Who's Sheila?" And Sheila was Emily's track coach, mentor, and she said, "Sheila's who I want to be like when I'm old." And she goes, "She's a badass woman, she's feminine, she's tough, she's pretty, she's smart, she's everything you want to be." And so I've never met a coach or a teacher that does it for the paycheck. So please know, all you coaches here, what you do for these kids matters. It's evident in our house. It's been evident for the 26 years that Emily and I have been together. It's transitioned to my son who's graduating high school this year. It's your contributions matter, and you're doing the right things for the right reasons. So thank you. Amen. Emily was a high school volleyball player and a track athlete. She got recruited to row. Yep, doesn't correlate. She was at a volleyball tournament. Tammy Crawford, who is the founding rowing coach at WSU, she started the program, was recruiting athletes. And she saw Emily play volleyball. A few weeks later, a letter showed up in the mail and said, "Hey, give us a call if you're interested, and we'll have you over on a recruiting trip." I have no idea what happened on that recruiting trip, but here's what they don't tell you if you're going to be a rower. Okay, and if any of you know any college rowers, they're masochists. As a baseball player, we throw a ball, we hit it, we run around, we laugh, we pick rocks. Here's what a college rower does on any given day. They go to bed about 8 o'clock at night because their training starts at 5 a.m. And if you're in Pullman, where it's not particularly warm most of the year, you're getting in a car or a van and you're going to drive 30 minutes down a steep grade that's icy half the time to get into a boat that's floating on a river that's about 36 degrees. And you're going to do 2 hours of conditioning. And if anybody has ever sat on one of those little rowing machines at the gym, you're expected to pull 2,000 meters in under 7 minutes. And if anybody in this room can do that, high five. Because it's very hard. You do this every morning for 2 hours, and if coach is mad because things aren't going well, you're going to run up the Y grade. Or if the water's too choppy, you're going to run up the Y grade. Come back, you might get a yogurt, get some breakfast, go to class. Then at 3 o'clock, guess what you do? You go back to the water for another 2 hours, 3 hours of conditioning. It's not a very glamorous thing. But I can tell you that if you track Washington State University sports, the WSU rowing team is probably the most continuously successful athletic program they have. When Emily was a junior, her boat placed in the top 10 at NCAA tournament. So it's the equivalent of going to the Sweet 16. It's a big deal. They beat the Huskies. Which is an even bigger deal because the University of Washington's rowing program is to be like the Alabama of football, right? They're pretty good, okay? And that pains me to admit that they're very, very good. So Emily's role in the boat was, they put her in what they called the engine room. So there's 8 seats in this boat. They call it the stroke. That's the person who sits next to the coxswain, the short little person who yells. Okay, and the coxswain is the one who's meant to create the rhythm of the boat so it flows smooth across the water. And the stroke of the boat is the best rower. Typically, Emily's roommate was the stroke, and she's 6'4", long body, very strong, very athletic. And then, they have different roles. Emily's role was what they call the engine room. It's the most powerful person in the boat. Okay, it's the person who can get in the boat and pull on the oars the hardest and do it for the most prolonged period of time. And she hit the varsity boat as a sophomore, which doesn't happen. Oh, here's the other thing on the recruiting trip. There's going to be 150 of you that try out. There's 16 plus 4, 20 varsity spots. And there's going to be 44 of you left at the end of the year because the other 50 to 60 of you are going to get injured or hate it so much you don't want to do it anymore. Okay. Emily hit the varsity boat her sophomore year with no experience outside of her freshman year, what she learned. In between freshman and sophomore summer, she got invited to try out for the Junior Olympic rowing program. She anchored the varsity boat in the middle for 3 seasons. Junior and senior year, they went to the NCAA tournament. Both placed in the top 15 both times. She was an all Pac-10 rower, graduated with a 3.5, 3.6 GPA, I think.
It's 9 figures up.
3.9. Still wasn't as high as mine, but we won't talk about that. Now on to a couple of, she got a lot of formal accolades as a rower, but there were things that, in my opinion, as an athlete, mean more. It's the coaches' awards, the team awards, the stuff that happens in the locker room when nobody's watching. Her first year at WSU, she won the Strength and Conditioning Award given by the strength coaches to one female athlete. Okay. Her nickname, or the award the teammates gave her, was the Chevy Award. Remember the old Chevy slogan, like a rock? She was pretty tough. Her junior year, she set the record at the WSU athletic department for female athletes for vertical leap. She could jump out of a building, and this was an athletic department. I think our volleyball team went to the Elite 8 that year, and we had a couple of jumpers and a heptathlete that were NCAA qualifiers. So it wasn't in a room full of people who couldn't jump. Okay, and this is the funniest story, and I think it's pretty cool. So her strength coach we called him Trin. His name was Gregory's son. He was from Trinidad, Tobago, the little island. And one day they were doing some training, vertical jump training or leg pressure training. And he looks at her and he says, "Hey, do you think you could become a citizen of Trinidad?" She's like, "Why?" "Well, we're starting a bobsled team. And we want to go to the Olympics." And so she was officially invited to be a part of the Trinidad and Tobago bobsled team. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But the reality is it was all really cool stuff, but there are no words to describe how good of a mother she is, how good of a wife she is, how good of a human she is. So with that, I'd like to introduce Emily.
Super introverted, not going to talk as long as any of the men have talked so far. But before I left for WSU, like not long before, Weber was like, "I'm pretty sure you're going to hook up with a cute baseball player." And like 26, 27 years later, he's still like my ultimate hype man. So I know we've talked a little bit about what it was like to be at Southridge in those first years, and it was kind of wild, especially, a lot of us have older kids, so watching the traditions that have been established. My kids graduating from Southridge this year, so it really is pretty cool to look back and to be part and recognized as part of kind of what we built, because We were just kids. We didn't know what we were doing. We were dumb kids. We did a lot of dumb stuff I don't think we could talk about. My kid is way better a kid than some of us were. I did pass out one time from locking my knees. So thank you so much for this. This is really kind of a special thing. I think most of us, as you're growing up and you're doing all of your things, you know that your parents are supporting you and that they're getting you to your practices and they're spending all of their dollars to get you to be able to do the things you want to do. But now that we have 3 little athletes we're raising and we are stretched so thin and we are spending all the time in the car and prepping all of the meals, it doesn't happen without a community. And I was thankful enough to have great parents that made it happen while raising 3 kids. So thanks, Mom and Dad. And then, we did all the volleyball. I mean, my dad and I spent 1,000 hours in the car together, and I was going to go play junior college volleyball, and then I was like, hey, I think I'm going to go to WSU and row a boat. And that, I don't know if I'd be brave enough to let my kid take a risk like that now. But so thanks, guys. It worked out okay, but what a wild, I don't think that happens now. WSU was a pretty new program when I went, so they were just literally looking for someone with big quads that could jump, and it did end up working out pretty well for me. So I guess that's okay. I was a pretty decent high school athlete. I wasn't great. I was good, but I wasn't winning state championships or any of those kinds of things. But what I did learn how to do was work my ass off. And I learned that because of Sheila. I don't want to cry, that's embarrassing. I really only had the opportunities I had later because I learned how to train really hard. I learned that muscles were cool and it was okay to sweat and to be proud of what your body could do and take dance breaks to Baby Got Back and other mildly inappropriate rap music in the gym. But I learned to love the feeling of kind of blacking out a little bit on a deadlift max. And, Ryan talked about rowers being a masochist, and there is a little bit of that, but there's learning to train hard and love the process and turning your brain off a little bit and letting your body do what your body is capable of. And I only learned that because of Coach Smith. I never, ever, ever would have had any of the opportunities I had later if I hadn't learned to love the grind and love burning lungs and ODP and kind of feeling like you might throw up or pass out. And I still like to do that. I threw up at the gym 2 months ago. So, it doesn't ever really leave you, I don't think. So I think it's got to be 80% of Southridge athletes could probably trace their success back to the Smiths. So I fully anticipate an induction here shortly. So thanks, you guys. That's kind of it for me. Ryan he had a lot to say. So thanks. I'll keep it short. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.